all of New York City is afraid of, and that is Islam. For some reason, New York City is split in between whether Islam is good for New York City or is Islam bad for New York City. We got all these young, brainwashed voters who wanted to vote for socialism and put Zohran Mamdani in office, when Zohran Mamdani is also a Muslim. So I want to educate Harlem on the real history of Islam, because Islam has been running up and down Harlem for decades.
Right.
With Elijah Muhammad, with Farrakhan, with Malcolm X, with Farah Muhammad. No one knows if he's really a Turk, a white man, an Arab. No one knows. But what we do know is that history does not lie. And in this book, the author, the researcher, Rudolph R. Windsor, talks about Islam and Muhammad. So let's get some historical evidence that will prove whether Islam is actually good for Black, Hispanic, and Native American people. This is a book called From Babylon to Timbuktu by a black man named Rudolph R. Windsor. Now let's go to page 37. Read the title, and then read the highlighted portion right there.
Black Arabs, black Jews, and Ethiopians. Arabia, the land of the offspring of Ishmael.
The offspring of who?
Of Ishmael.
Now, if you Christians know, Ishmael is a person, a character in the Bible. Ishmael was one of the many sons of Abraham. Ishmael was the son that Abraham had with an Egyptian, an African woman named Hagar. Keep going.
The son of Abraham is bordered on the east by the Indian Ocean, on the northeast by the Persian Gulf, on the north by the Arabian Desert, and on the west by the Red Sea.
So he's giving us a breakdown on where this Arabia is, where this person named Ishmael actually dwells. Now, if you need further proof on Ishmael, then let's go into the Bible. Let me get Genesis. We're going to go into the book of Genesis, right? Genesis chapter 16, verse 10. We're going to go to Genesis chapter 16, verse 10. Let's go read.
Genesis chapter 16, verse 10. And the angel of the Lord said unto her.
Now the angel right here is speaking to the slave woman, that African woman, Hagar, the bondmaiden, the slave of Sarah in the Bible.
I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for a multitude.
So the angel is telling Hagar, this Egyptian, this slave woman, that her seed, the seed that's in her belly, is going to be multiplied into a great nation. Keep going.
Verse 11. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shall bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael.
What shall his name be called?
Ishmael.
What?
Ishmael.
Now we learned that Arabia was the home of the offspring of Ishmael. These are where Arabs come from. Right. Biblically and historically, Arabs, the founders of Islam, come from the slave woman Hagar that Abraham slept with. Keep going.
Because the Lord had heard thy affliction. Verse 12. And he will be a wild man.
What?
And he will be a wild man.
Muslims are what?
A wild man.
Arabs are what?
A wild man.
Zohran Mamdani is what?
A wild man.
When those terrorists from Al-Qaeda dropped the World Trade Center and flew those planes into the Twin Towers, it was right that they were called what?
A wild man.
These Arabs are wild men.
Right.
If you follow that religion called Islam, then you too follow the spirit of that wild man. You follow that same religion, then you are also part of that wild man. Right? Read this again.
Slacky. Verse 12.
Verse 11. Yeah, verse 12.
And he will be a wild man.
A what?
A wild man.
What do Muslims do? They're wild. They'll do everything. Muslims will strap a bomb onto a child's chest. Muslims will strap a bomb onto a woman's chest. Muslims will strap a bomb onto their own chest to blow up and accomplish whatever wild goals they have. It's telling you this right here in the Bible. Ishmael was a wild man. Keep going.
His hand will be against every man.
His what?
His hand will be against every
It
man.
says his hand will be against every man. And the proof is with Muhammad. We can read about Muhammad in this book that a black researcher wrote. That a black researcher took his time to dive into the archaeology, to dive into his history of Ishmael and where Arabs, Muhammad, and Islam comes from. Let's get back to this book. Right here. Read the title of this chapter.
The birth of Islam.
The what?
The birth of Islam.
Because Islam is not a real religion. Islam is not a real religion. Islam had to be created by a man.
Right.
After we had the Jews. After Christianity was created. That is when Islam came onto the scene in the world. Now read the highlighted portion.
Europe remained dormant and inactive for 1,000 years through the Dark Ages.
Now during the period called the Dark Ages, all of Europe was quiet for 1,000 years. They were at war with the Western Roman Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire. You had all these Germanic tribes attacking and dismantling the structure that the Roman Empire had built. Keep going.
While the Muslim Empire,
The what?
the Muslim Empire
While the Muslim Empire,
mastered the civilized, progressive world.
they started to take control of what the Romans failed to hold on to. Go to the next portion.
When Muhammad was born,
When who?
when Muhammad was born,
The so-called prophet of Islam, Muhammad. Muhammad was not a prophet.
right,
And we're going to prove why Muhammad was not a prophet. Read it again.
when Muhammad was born, many Arabs were still worshiping the sun.
What?
Many Arabs were still worshiping the sun.
When Muhammad was born, the father of Islam, all the Arabs were still worshiping the sun as if the sun was a god. Keep going.
Stars,
The what?
stars,
When you look up into the night sky and you see all those twinklings from the stars, these wild Arabs were still worshiping the stars as if these stars were God. Keep going.
spirits, and
The
idols.
what?
Spirits,
You know how they say the spirit of the mother, the spirit of the wind, the spirit of the forest, the spirit of the fish. These Arabs were worshiping spirits as if they had more power than God. Keep going.
and idols,
And what?
and idols.
That means that these Arabs made items and structures and worshiped these things as if they were God. So when Muhammad was born, his people, the Arabs, were worshiping the sun, worshiping the stars, worshiping idols, and worshiping spirits. Keep going.
The Arabs possessed 360 idols.
What?
The Arabs possessed 360 idols.
Now Muhammad's people, the Arabs, they had 360 different idols that they worshipped. This is when Muhammad was born.
Right.
Before the birth of Muhammad, his people were worshiping the sun, were worshiping the stars, were worshiping spirits, were worshiping all types of idols. 360 idols. Islam does not teach you the history of Muhammad and his people, because real Islam is not found in the black community. Real Islam is not found in the Hispanic community. But the real version of Islam can be found in the deserts of Saudi Arabia, can be found on the outskirts of Mecca and Medina, where the real people of Islam, the Arabs, used to worship the sun, the moon, the stars, the spirit, the water, the sand, the wind, all types of idols. Keep going.
One for each day of the year.
What?
One for each day of the year.
Muhammad's people had one God, had one idol that they worshiped on a different day of the year. One idol for Monday, one idol for Tuesday, one idol for next week Friday, one idol for 3 months on a Saturday. These Arabs, Muhammad's ancestors, had one God and one idol for each day of the year. That is where Muhammad got his upbringing. This is where Islam got its upbringing. Keep going.
In his youth, he was never taught to read or write.
Muhammad what?
Was never taught to read or write.
This fake prophet of Islam called Muhammad was illiterate. He could not read. He could not read. He could not write. Keep going.
But his imagination.
His what?
His imagination.
His imagination. The imagination of Muhammad. Him being able to create things in his head. Like someone who has a mental illness. Or like a child who thinks that Barney is real.
Right.
Or that he can go like this, like Superman, and webs can come out of his hand. Muhammad, his imagination
was superlative.
Was superlative. It was crazy. It was wild. It was big. Muhammad's imagination was bigger than the entire ocean. Go down to the next part.
On his business trips, he met Jews.
What did he meet?
He met Jews.
On his business trip, because Muhammad was a camel driver. Keep going.
Christians and members of other sects. On his business trips, he met Jews.
Who did Muhammad meet?
He met Jews.
Muhammad, when he was conducting business, he met Jews. Keep going.
Jews, Christians, and
Christians, people that believe in Christianity.
And members of other sects.
Keep going.
He interrogated them.
So what Muhammad would do, Muhammad would sit down with the real children of God. Muhammad would sit down with the Israelites and ask them questions about their God. Because Muhammad didn't have a God. Muhammad had 360 different gods, one for each day of the week. That's what this history is revealing about Muhammad.